Tonight, we're traveling to a forgotten tower perched on a hill above a sleeping village. The autumn mist clings to the stone, and inside, a single light burns. It's a place where old knowledge lives, where copper vessels distill moonlight into essence, and ancient formulas wait to be understood. This is not a story of quick answers, but of a lifetime spent asking questions. An alchemist's workbench, a 300-year-old secret, and one night that changes everything. Close your eyes if you'd like. Breathe slowly. Welcome to Dreamy On. The old tower stood silent that autumn night, but something ancient was stirring. In a forgotten corner of the countryside, where mist clung to stone like memories refusing to fade, Elias the alchemist had finally found what he'd been searching for. The leather-bound journal lay open before him, its pages yellowed with age, revealing secrets that had been buried for 300 years. The candlelight flickered across his weathered face as he traced the faded ink with trembling fingers. The formula was incomplete, just as the legends had whispered, but Elias had spent 40 years of his life piecing together fragments from a dozen different sources, traveling to libraries in distant cities, speaking with scholars who thought him mad. Tonight, as the clock in the village below chimed midnight, he believed he finally understood what the ancient masters had been trying to tell him. The tower room smelled of dried herbs and old parchment, a comforting scent that had become as familiar to him as breathing. Bundles of lavender hung from the ceiling beams, their purple flowers long faded, but their essence still lingering in the air. Glass bottles lined the wooden shelves, each containing liquids of different colors: amber like honey, deep blue like the ocean at dusk, green like spring leaves catching morning light. Some bubbled softly, heated by flames so small they seemed like stars captured in glass. But what drew Elias's attention most was the copper vessel in the center of his workbench. It was an alembic, its curves elegant and purposeful, handed down through generations of alchemists who had each added their own understanding to its design. The metal had developed a patina over the centuries, a soft green that reminded Elias of moss growing on ancient stones. Inside, a clear liquid distilled drop by precious drop, each one catching the candlelight as it fell. He had been working on this particular distillation for 7 days and 7 nights, barely sleeping, eating only when hunger became too insistent to ignore. His apprentice, a young woman named Clara, had brought him bread and cheese earlier that evening, her brow furrowed with concern. She had wanted to stay, to help, but Elias had gently sent her away. This part of the work, he knew, had to be completed alone. The journal before him had belonged to an alchemist named Isabeau, a woman who had lived in this very tower 3 centuries ago. Her handwriting was small and precise, the words flowing across the page like a river finding its path. She had been close, so very close, to achieving the great work, that transformation that all alchemists sought, the change that was both physical and spiritual, external and internal. But something happened. The entries became more cryptic toward the end, filled with warnings and riddles. Isabeau wrote of dreams that felt more real than waking life, of visions that showed her truths she wasn't ready to understand. She described walking through gardens that existed in no earthly place, speaking with figures whose faces shifted like smoke. And then, suddenly, the entries stopped. Imagine if you were standing in that tower room with Elias, feeling the cool autumn air slipping through the gaps in the stone walls, watching the candlelight dance across centuries-old words. The silence would feel heavy with possibility, as though the very air was waiting for something to happen. Elias stood and walked to the narrow window, looking out over the darkened landscape. The village below was asleep, its windows dark, its streets empty. Beyond the village, fields stretched toward distant forests, everything painted in shades of silver by the moon. It was the kind of night that felt suspended between worlds, neither fully in one place nor another. He had lived in this tower for most of his adult life, ever since he had discovered his calling as a young man. Some in the village thought him strange, a recluse who spoke more to his bottles and books than to people. But Clara understood. She had come to him 5 years ago, a curious girl of 15 with questions that no one else could answer. He had seen in her the same hunger for knowledge that had driven him, the same willingness to dedicate her life to understanding the mysteries that lay beneath the surface of ordinary things. The alembic continued its patient work, distilling essence from matter, separating the pure from the impure. This was the heart of alchemy, Elias had come to understand over the years. It wasn't about turning lead into gold, though the old texts spoke of such transformations. It was about refining oneself, removing the dross of fear and doubt, distilling down to the essential truth of existence. But there was more to Isabeau's formula, something that went beyond the spiritual metaphor. The ingredients she listed were specific: water from a spring that flowed only at the dark of the moon, petals from a flower that bloomed once every 7 years, honey gathered from bees that fed on wild thyme growing in limestone soil. Elias had spent years collecting these components, traveling to remote places, waiting for the right seasons, the right conditions. And now, tonight, everything was ready. The alembic in the liquid was nearly complete. By dawn, it would be finished. The question that hummed through Elias's mind, keeping him awake despite his exhaustion, was simple and profound. What would happen when he finally consumed the elixir? Yet beneath that question lay another, deeper and more unsettling. Why had Isabeau stopped writing? What had she discovered that made her abandon her work? Or perhaps, and this thought made Elias's hands grow cold, what had discovered her? The candle guttered as a breeze moved through the room, and for a moment the shadows seemed to shift in ways that defied the light source. Elias turned back to the workbench, his heart beating a little faster. The copper alembic gleamed in the renewed candlelight, and the liquid inside seemed to glow with its own faint luminescence, a soft blue-white radiance that hadn't been there moments before. He sat down again, opening the journal to the last entry Isabeau had made. The handwriting here was different, more hurried, the letters slightly shaky as though written in great emotion or haste. The boundary between dreaming and waking grows thin. I no longer know which world is real and which is reflection, but I have seen such beauty, such terrible beauty, that I cannot turn away. Tonight, I will drink the elixir. Tonight, I will cross over. May whoever finds this journal understand that transformation is not what we imagine it to be. The entry ended there, mid-page, as though Isabeau had been interrupted or had simply stopped, overwhelmed by what she was about to do. The remaining pages of the journal were blank, waiting for words that were never written. Elias felt a chill run down his spine, but it wasn't fear exactly. It was anticipation mixed with a kind of reverence, the feeling one might have standing at the edge of an undiscovered country. He had devoted his entire adult life to this moment. To turn back now would be to deny everything he had worked for, everything he believed. The clock in the village struck 1, the sound drifting up to the tower like a ghost of time itself. Elias stood and began to prepare for the final steps of the work. He would need to add the last ingredient at precisely the right moment, when the distillation was complete, but before the liquid cooled. Timing was everything in alchemy, as in life. The scent of lavender seemed to grow stronger, mixing with the smell of wax from the candles and something else, something harder to define, a metallic tang perhaps, or the ozone smell that comes before a thunderstorm. The air in the room felt charged, expectant. Elias thought of Clara, asleep in her small cottage at the edge of the village. He had left her a letter, sealed and placed in the drawer of his desk, to be opened only if he didn't return by noon the next day. In it, he had explained everything, or as much as could be explained in words. He had instructed her to continue the work if she felt called to do so, or to abandon it if she did not. The choice would be hers, as it had been his. But what did not returning mean in this context? Isabeau's journal suggested that the transformation might take one beyond the ordinary world into some other realm of existence. But surely that was metaphor, wasn't it? The language of dreams and visions that alchemists use to describe internal changes. Yet the glowing liquid in the alembic suggested otherwise. There was something happening here that went beyond mere chemistry or psychology, something real and tangible, even if it defied ordinary understanding. The night deepened around the tower, and in the distance an owl called out, its voice lonely and haunting. Elias walked to the shelf where he kept his most precious books, running his fingers along their spines. Each represented years of study, of careful note-taking, of experiments both successful and failed. He had learned so much, and yet he felt like a child standing before an ocean, having only just learned that water exists. Actually, there was something else in Isabeau's journal that he hadn't told Clara about, something that had troubled him ever since he first read it. In one of her earlier entries, written years before the final one, Isabeau had described a dream. In this dream, she stood in a garden at twilight, surrounded by flowers that glowed with their own soft light. A figure approached her, its form indistinct, constantly shifting. It spoke without words, communicating directly to her mind. "Every transformation requires a sacrifice," the figure had told her. "Not of blood or life, but of certainty. To change, you must release your grip on what you think you know. The caterpillar that becomes a butterfly does not remember being a caterpillar. Are you willing to forget who you are in order to become who you might be?" Isabeau had written that she woke from this dream with tears streaming down her face, though she couldn't say whether they were tears of joy or sorrow. Perhaps both, she had noted. Perhaps the deepest transformations always carry both within them. Elias understood what she meant. He had lived so long as Elias the alchemist, the seeker, the one who asked questions and searched for answers. If the transformation was real, if it truly changed him at a fundamental level, would he still be himself afterward? Or would he be someone, something new? The liquid in the alembic had almost finished its distillation. Only a few more drops remained to fall. Elias prepared the final ingredient, a powder ground from dried flower petals, kept in a small silver box that had been his mother's. She had died when he was young, too young to really know her, but he remembered her hands, gentle and careful, and her voice, soft as falling snow. He wondered what she would think of him now, this son who had chosen such a strange and solitary path. Would she be proud? Worried? Perhaps she would simply understand, in the way that mothers sometimes do, that he had to follow his nature wherever it led. The last drop fell from the alembic. The liquid inside had stopped bubbling and now lay perfectly still, its blue-white glow steady and serene. This was the moment. Elias opened the silver box and measured out the powder with a tiny brass spoon, his movements precise despite the trembling in his hands. He added the powder to the liquid and watched as it dissolved, sending spirals of deeper blue swirling through the mixture. The glow intensified for a moment, then settled into a soft, steady radiance that reminded Elias of moonlight on water. The scent that rose from the vessel was indescribable, something like night-blooming jasmine, but also like rain on stone, and underneath it all, a note of something ancient and wild. But here, at this crucial moment, doubt crept in. What if he had made a mistake in the formula? What if one of the ingredients had been wrong or the timing off? What if Isabeau's warnings were not about the transformation itself, but about some danger inherent in the process? He stood there, the vessel before him, his entire life's work distilled into this single cup of glowing liquid, and felt the weight of the choice pressing down on him. To drink or not to drink, to transform or remain as he was, to step into the unknown or stay in the familiar, limited but safe world he had always known. The candles flickered again, and in their dancing light, Elias thought he saw something move in the corner of the room. He turned quickly, but there was nothing there, only shadows and the shapes of his familiar equipment. Yet the sense of presence remained, as though something or someone was watching, waiting to see what he would do. Imagine being in that room with him, feeling the cool air, smelling the mingled scents of herbs and wax, and that indescribable fragrance rising from the alembic. The silence would feel almost alive, pulsing with possibility. Your heart would beat a little faster, your breath would come a little shorter as you waited to see what would happen next. Elias thought of all the years of study, all the journeys, all the late nights spent poring over ancient texts by candlelight. He thought of Clara and the hope in her eyes when she spoke of the great work. He thought of Isabeau, 3 centuries gone, leaving only her journal and her unanswered questions behind. And then, with a calmness that surprised even himself, he made his decision. He carefully poured the liquid from the alembic into a small crystal glass, one that had been made specifically for this purpose, crafted by a glass blower who worked only during the full moon and sang old songs while he shaped the molten material. The liquid filled the glass halfway, its glow illuminating Elias's face from below, casting strange and beautiful shadows. He held the glass up to the candlelight, watching the way the radiance played through the crystal, breaking into 1,000 tiny rainbows. "For knowledge," he whispered, speaking to the empty room, or perhaps to whatever presence he had felt watching. "For transformation. For the courage to become." He brought the glass to his lips. The liquid was neither hot nor cold, but something in between, like touching air itself. The taste was complex, unfolding in layers, sweet at first, then slightly bitter, then something else entirely, something that couldn't quite be called a taste at all, but was more like a memory of moonlight or the echo of a song. Elias drank it all, feeling it slide down his throat, warmth spreading through his chest and into his limbs. For a moment, nothing happened. He stood there, the empty glass in his hand, wondering if perhaps it hadn't worked, if all those years of effort had been for nothing. And then the world began to change. It started subtly, so subtly that at first Elias wasn't sure if he was imagining it. The candlelight seemed brighter, more alive, each flame not just light, but something conscious and dancing. The shadows deepened, but instead of seeming threatening, they felt like doorways, openings into spaces that existed beside and beyond the physical room. The scent of lavender intensified until Elias could almost see it, purple waves of fragrance moving through the air like water. The sound of his own heartbeat became audible, then visible, pulsing rings of subtle light emanating from his chest with each beat. The boundary between his senses began to blur. He could taste colors, hear textures, feel sounds against his skin. But this was only the beginning. As the elixir worked its way more deeply into his system, the changes became more profound. The stone walls of the tower seemed to thin and become translucent, revealing other structures behind them, buildings from other times or perhaps other possibilities. Elias saw the tower as it had been when it was first built, saw the hands that had laid each stone, felt the intentions and hopes of those long-dead builders. He saw Isabel standing where he now stood 300 years ago, drinking her own version of the elixir. She looked up, and for a moment that defied time, their eyes met. She smiled, and Elias understood that she was showing him it was safe, that the transformation, whatever it entailed, was not to be feared. The room was expanding now, or perhaps Elias was expanding, or perhaps there had never been any real boundary between him and the space around him. He could feel the wood of the workbench, the cool glass of the bottles, the flame of the candles, all as intimately as he felt his own skin. He was not separate from these things, but continuous with them, part of the same vast pattern. Yet even as these changes unfolded, Elias remained conscious, aware. He was witnessing his own transformation from a place of deep calm. There was no fear, no resistance. He had spent 40 years preparing for this moment, not just in gathering ingredients and studying texts, but in cultivating the inner readiness to let go of his ordinary understanding of reality. The night outside the tower window seemed to lighten, though dawn was still hours away. Or perhaps Elias was seeing with new eyes that could perceive light invisible to normal vision. The landscape was alive with subtle glows and flowing energies, lines of force connecting trees to earth, earth to sky, sky to stars. Everything was in motion, everything was alive, everything was conscious in its own way. And then Elias began to dream, though he was certain he was still awake. He found himself standing in a garden, just as Isabeau had described in her journal. The flowers here glowed softly, each one a different color, and they moved even though there was no wind, swaying in rhythm to some unheard music. The twilight was perpetual, never fading to full night, never brightening to day. A figure approached, just as it had approached Isabeau. Its form shifted and changed, sometimes appearing human, sometimes like a pattern of light, sometimes like nothing that could be named. Yet Elias felt no fear. There was something familiar about this presence, something that resonated with a part of himself he had never fully known existed. "Welcome," the figure said, and its voice was like water over stones, like wind through leaves, like the turning of seasons. "You have traveled far to reach this place." "Where is this place?" Elias asked, and was surprised to hear his own voice, clear and strong, unchanged by whatever was happening to him. "This is the garden between, the space that exists in the pause between breaths, in the moment between sleeping and waking, in the transformation between what was and what will be. All alchemists who complete the great work come here eventually. Some stay for a moment, some for years. Time flows differently here." "And Isabeau?" Elias asked. "Did she come here?" The figure gestured, and Elias saw her, not in person, but in a vision that felt more real than memory. Isabeau walking through the garden, touching flowers, speaking with other figures, learning. She had not died as he had sometimes feared. She had simply moved on to a different mode of existence. "She remained here," the figure said, "as do others. Some alchemists find that the physical world no longer holds what they need. They stay in the garden between, continuing their work in ways that transcend matter. "And will I stay?" Elias asked, feeling a sudden pang of sadness as he thought of Clara, of his tower, of all the familiar things of his life. Actually, that wasn't quite the right question, and Elias knew it as soon as the words left his mouth. The real question was, what did he want? He had spent so long focused on achieving this transformation that he hadn't fully considered what would come after. The figure seemed to smile, though its face was too indistinct to be sure. "That choice is yours to make. The transformation you've undergone cannot be undone. You are no longer quite what you were, but you may return to your ordinary life if you wish, carrying this new awareness with you. Or you may stay here and explore further. Both paths have their gifts and their challenges." Elias thought of Clara waiting for him, of the letter in his desk drawer, of the morning light that would soon touch his tower window. He thought of all the people in the village below, living their ordinary lives, unaware of the garden that existed between moments, the transformation that was possible for those willing to seek it. And he thought of Isabeau, choosing to remain, to go deeper into the mystery. He didn't judge her choice, he understood it. There was something seductive about this place, this state of expanded consciousness. The ordinary world seemed small and limited in comparison, like going back to a single room after discovering that an entire mansion existed beyond it. But there was also something important about the ordinary world, something precious, the weight of a book in your hands, the taste of bread and honey, the sound of another person's laughter, the changing of seasons, the simple, profound fact of being alive in a body, limited and miraculous. "I want to return," Elias said, and even as he spoke the words, he felt their truth resonate through him. "Not because this place isn't beautiful, it is, more beautiful than anything I've ever seen. But I have work to do in the world. I have someone to teach. And I want to live with this awareness, to bring what I've learned here back into ordinary life." The figure inclined its head, a gesture of respect. "Then you will return. But know this, you carry the garden between within you now. You can return here in your meditations, in your dreams, in the moments between moments. The door, once opened, never truly closes." The garden began to fade, or perhaps Elias was fading from it. He felt himself being drawn back through layers of consciousness, back toward his body standing in the tower room. The journey felt both instantaneous and eternal, as though no time had passed and all of time had passed simultaneously. When Elias opened his eyes, had they ever been closed? He was standing in his tower room, the empty crystal glass still in his hand. The candles had burned lower, but only slightly. Perhaps 10 minutes had passed in ordinary time, or perhaps mere seconds. The sky outside the window was still dark, though there was a hint of something lighter on the eastern horizon. He set down the glass carefully and walked to the window, looking out over the sleeping village. Everything looked the same, yet everything was different. He could see the ordinary houses and streets, but overlaid on them was another kind of seeing, a perception of the energy and consciousness that flowed through all things. He saw the dreams of the sleeping villagers as soft glows around their homes, saw the life force of trees pulsing gently in the darkness, saw the patterns of cause and effect rippling outward from every action, every thought. But more than this, Elias felt different. The constant internal chatter that had filled his mind for as long as he could remember had quieted. In its place was a deep stillness, a peace that didn't depend on circumstances or achievements. He was still himself, still Elias, still the alchemist, still the teacher and seeker. But he was also more than that, connected to something vast and timeless. The transformation had been real. It had been everything the ancient texts promised, and nothing like he had imagined. He had not gained magical powers or immortality. He had not transcended his humanity, but he had expanded his understanding of what being human could mean, had touched something infinite while remaining firmly rooted in the finite. As the first light of dawn began to paint the sky, Elias thought about how he would explain this to Clara. How could he put into words something that transcended language? How could he teach what he had learned when so much of it was experiential, impossible to convey except through direct transmission? Perhaps that was the next phase of the work, he thought, not just achieving the transformation for himself, but finding ways to help others touch that same possibility. Not everyone would need to drink an alchemical elixir. The elixir, he now understood, was a tool, a focusing device. What mattered was the willingness to let go, to question, to remain open to the mystery. He began to clean up his workspace, carefully storing the copper alembic, putting away his tools, organizing his books. The familiar motions were soothing, grounding him back in the physical world. He was tired now, a bone-deep exhaustion that felt earned and good. Soon he would sleep, and he wondered what dreams would come now that he had touched the garden between. But first, there was something he needed to do. Elias sat at his desk and pulled out a fresh sheet of paper. He dipped his quill in ink and began to write, adding his own entry to the tradition of alchemists documenting their experiences. His handwriting was steady, the words flowing easily. "To whoever reads this after I am gone," he wrote, "know that the great work is real and it is worth pursuing, but know also that it is not what you imagine it to be. Transformation is not about escaping life, but about entering it more fully. The gold we seek is not found by turning lead into precious metal, but by recognizing that everything already is precious. The elixir of immortality is not a potion that lets you live forever, but the realization that you are already part of something eternal." He paused, considering what else to say. There was so much, and yet anything he wrote would only be a finger pointing at the moon, not the moon itself. Each person would have to make their own journey, face their own trials, discover their own truth. "I have touched something tonight that has no name," he continued. "I have stood in a garden that exists between heartbeats and learned that consciousness is far vaster than we imagine. I have spoken with something, someone, that showed me the next stage of my work, and I have chosen to return to live in the ordinary world with extraordinary awareness. This, I believe, is the true great work, not to escape the world, but to transform our relationship with it." As Elias wrote, he didn't notice the soft footsteps on the stairs, the gentle knock at his door. Clara stood there, wrapped in a shawl against the morning cold, her eyes bright with curiosity and concern. "Master Elias," she called softly, "I saw the light in your window. I knew tonight was important. Are you well?" Elias looked up from his writing and smiled, a smile that seemed to carry light from some internal source. "Come in, Clara," he said. "I have much to tell you and even more to show you. The journey we've been preparing for has finally begun." Clara entered the tower room, and as she did, she gasped softly. Something had changed in the space, something she couldn't quite name. The air felt different, charged with possibility, and Elias himself seemed different, calmer, more present, as though he had somehow become more real, more solid, even as he spoke of transformations that transcended the physical. "Did it work?" she asked, hardly daring to breathe. "The formula, the elixir, did you complete the great work?" Elias gestured for her to sit in the chair opposite his desk. "Yes and no," he said, and laughed at the expression on her face. "I know that's a frustrating answer. Let me try to explain. And so, as the sun rose fully over the village, painting the tower room in shades of gold and amber, Elias began to tell Clara about his experience. He spoke slowly, carefully choosing his words, trying to convey not just what happened, but the quality of it, the feeling, the essence. Clara listened with complete attention, occasionally asking questions, sometimes sitting in silence as she absorbed what he was telling her. And as she listened, she began to notice her own perceptions shifting, as though Elias's words were creating ripples in reality itself. "Can I learn this?" she finally asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Can I achieve this transformation too?" Elias looked at her with deep affection. He knew she would ask this, had known from the moment she first came to study with him that she had the calling, the dedication, the willingness to pursue truth wherever it led. "Yes," he said simply, "but the path I took may not be the path you take. Each alchemist's journey is unique. The elixir I created was specific to my needs, my understanding, my moment in time. You will need to find your own way, though I will guide you as much as I can." "Will you make the elixir again?" Clara asked. "Can you teach me the formula?" Elias shook his head slowly. "The formula is in Isabeau's journal, which I will give to you to study, but I don't think I will make the elixir again, at least not in the same way. What I learned last night is that the elixir was a catalyst, not the transformation itself. The real work happens in the consciousness, in the willingness to see beyond ordinary perception." He stood and walked to the window, looking out over the now bright morning. "There are other ways to achieve this transformation," he said. "Meditation, devoted practice, working with dreams, study of sacred texts. The alchemical method is powerful, but it's not the only path. What matters is commitment, patience, and the courage to let go of your certainty about how things are." Clara joined him at the window, standing close enough that their shoulders almost touched. She could feel something emanating from him, a kind of peaceful energy that made her own mind quieter, more focused. "I want to begin," she said firmly. "Today, now. Teach me what you know, Master Elias. Help me prepare for my own transformation." Elias smiled and placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "We begin where all true work begins," he said, "with attention, with presence, with the practice of seeing what is really here, right now, in this moment. The extraordinary is not separate from the ordinary, Clara. It's hidden within it, waiting to be recognized." They stood together at the window as the village below began to wake. Smoke rose from chimneys as fires were lit. Doors opened and people emerged into the morning light. Dogs barked, children called to each other. The daily life of the community unfolded in all its simple complexity. And Elias taught Clara the first lesson of the transformed consciousness, how to look at an ordinary scene and see the miracle of it, the way everything was connected, the way consciousness flowed through all things, the way even the smallest moment contained infinity. The days that followed were filled with new teaching and learning. Elias began to share not just his techniques and knowledge, but the understanding that had come from his experience in the garden between. Clara proved to be an excellent student, quick to grasp subtle concepts, patient with the slow work of transformation. But Elias also noticed changes in himself that continued to unfold. The transformation hadn't been a single event, but an ongoing process. Each day he discovered new depths to his awareness, new ways of relating to the world around him. Sometimes these discoveries were beautiful and profound. Sometimes they were challenging, forcing him to release old patterns of thought and behavior that no longer served him. He also found that his relationship with his work was changing. Where before he had been driven by a hunger for knowledge, a desire to achieve the great work, now he found himself simply enjoying the process itself.
The act of distilling an essence, of mixing ingredients, of watching transformations unfold in his copper vessels, these things became ends in themselves, not means to some other goal. One evening, about a month after his experience with the elixir, Elias and Clara were working together in the tower room. They were preparing a tincture of herbs that had medicinal properties, a simpler work than the great work, but no less valuable. The village doctor sometimes came to Elias for remedies that his own medical practice couldn't provide. As they worked, Clara suddenly spoke. "Master Elias," she said, "I've been thinking about Isabeau, about her choice to remain in the garden between. Do you think she was right to stay there, or should she have returned, as you did?" Elias considered the question carefully as he measured out dried chamomile flowers. "I don't think there's a right or wrong answer to that," he said finally. "Isabeau made the choice that was true for her, in her circumstances, with her understanding. I made a different choice. Neither is better than the other, they're simply different." "But don't you feel like there's work to be done here?" Clara pressed. "In the physical world, with people who are suffering or confused or lost? How can staying in the garden between serve them?" "Ah," Elias said, "but you're assuming that the garden between and the physical world are truly separate. What I learned is that they're not. They're different aspects of the same reality. Someone who dwells primarily in the garden between can still influence the physical world, just in different ways. They work with the patterns and energies that underlie material existence. They shape reality at a more subtle level." He paused in his work and looked at Clara directly. "And consider this. Isabeau's journal found its way to me across 3 centuries. Her work, her experience, her teachings, they didn't disappear when she chose to remain in the garden between. They continued to have an effect, to inspire and guide those who came after. Perhaps that was her service." Clara nodded slowly, absorbing this. "So there's not one right way to live after achieving the transformation." "Exactly," Elias confirmed. "The transformation opens up possibilities. What you do with those possibilities is your choice, based on your nature, your gifts, your sense of calling. Some may become teachers, sharing what they've learned. Others may become healers, working with the energies of body and spirit. Still others may become artists or poets, translating the ineffable into forms that can inspire others. And some, like Isabeau, may choose to work primarily in the subtle realms, in ways that aren't immediately visible but are nonetheless real." They continued their work in companionable silence for a while. The tincture they were preparing needed to steep for 28 days, one full lunar cycle. This was another thing Elias had learned through his studies, the importance of natural cycles, of working with the rhythms of moon and season rather than against them. As the weeks turned to months, word began to spread through the village and beyond that something had changed in the old alchemist. People who came to him for medicines or advice found themselves leaving with more than they had asked for, a sense of peace, a shift in perspective, a sudden insight into problems that had seemed insurmountable. The village doctor, a practical man named Thomas, who had initially been skeptical of Elias's work, became one of his regular visitors. "I don't understand what you do," Thomas admitted one afternoon, "but I can't deny the results. Patients who come to you often improve in ways that my medicines alone can't explain." Elias smiled. "I'm not doing anything magical, Thomas. I'm simply helping people remember what they already know at some deep level, that they're not separate from the healing forces of nature, that their consciousness can affect their physical state, that meaning and purpose are as important to health as medicine and treatment." "But how did you learn this?" Thomas asked, genuinely curious. "I've never heard you talk this way before. Something happened to you, didn't it?" Elias considered how much to reveal. He had been careful not to speak too openly about his experience, knowing that some things are better kept private, at least until the time is right.
But Thomas was a good man, open-minded despite his practical training, and genuinely interested in helping his patients. "I had an experience," Elias said carefully, "that changed my understanding of consciousness and reality. It's difficult to put into words, but what I learned is that healing isn't just about fixing what's broken. It's about helping people connect with the wholeness that already exists within them." Thomas sat back in his chair, stroking his beard thoughtfully. "I'd like to understand this better," he said. "Would you be willing to teach me, not the alchemy necessarily, but this way of seeing, of working with patients?" And so Elias's circle of students grew. Clara remained his primary apprentice in the alchemical arts, but Thomas and a few others began to study with him in different ways, learning to work with consciousness and energy, to see the connections between mind, body, and spirit. Yet, even as he taught others, Elias continued his own learning. At night, in the quiet hours before dawn, he would enter into deep meditation, returning to the garden between, exploring its pathways and meeting other consciousnesses there. Some were fellow alchemists from different times and places. Others were beings he couldn't categorize, teachers from realms beyond ordinary understanding. From them, he learned that the great work was not a destination, but a journey without end. Each level of transformation revealed new levels beyond it. Each answer generated new questions. The universe, it seemed, was structured in such a way that growth and learning could continue infinitely. This might have been discouraging, to realize that you could never reach a final point of complete understanding, but Elias found it liberating instead. It meant that life would never become boring or stagnant. There would always be new mysteries to explore, new depths to plumb, new possibilities to discover. One night, about 6 months after his initial transformation, Elias had a particularly vivid dream. He was walking through the garden between when he encountered Isabeau herself. She looked younger than he had imagined, perhaps in her 30s, with dark hair and bright, intelligent eyes that seemed to see through surfaces to essences. "Elias," she said, smiling with recognition, even though they had never met in physical form. "I've been watching your progress. You've done well." "Thank you," Elias replied, feeling oddly shy in the presence of this woman whose journal had guided so much of his work. "I've been following your path, or at least walking a path you helped illuminate." "Not my path," Isabeau corrected gently. "Your own path. The journal was a guide, yes, but you made your own choices, your own discoveries. That's how it should be. Each alchemist must find their own way." They walked together through the garden, and Isabeau showed him flowers and plants he hadn't noticed before, each one representing different aspects of consciousness, different possibilities for transformation and growth. "Why did you choose to remain here?" Elias asked at one point. "Was it because the physical world disappointed you, or because this realm offered something you couldn't find there?" Isabeau considered the question carefully. "Both and neither," she said finally. "The physical world didn't disappoint me. I loved it. The texture of things, the taste of food, the warmth of sun on skin. But I felt called to work here, in the garden between. I could sense that my gifts were needed here, that I could serve in ways that weren't possible in physical form." "Do you ever regret it?" Elias asked. "Do you ever wish you had chosen differently?" "Sometimes," Isabeau admitted. "When I see students like you continuing the work in the physical world, I feel a pang of something like longing. But regret? No. I made the right choice for me, just as you made the right choice for you. We're both serving the same work, just from different vantage points." She stopped beside a particularly beautiful flower, its petals shifting through a spectrum of colors that didn't exist in the ordinary world. "The important thing to understand," she said, "is that the work continues regardless of where we are or what form we take.
The great work isn't personal, it's universal. We're all part of it, contributing what we can, learning what we need to learn. What happens next? Elias asked. For me, I mean. I've achieved the transformation you wrote about. I've touched the garden between. I've learned to see with new eyes. But I sense there's more.
There's always more, Isabeau said with a laugh. That's the beauty and challenge of consciousness. It's infinite in its potential for growth. What happens next depends on what you choose, what calls to you, what problems or mysteries capture your attention. She turned to face him fully. But I can tell you this, the next phase of your work will involve helping others achieve their own transformations, not by giving them formulas to follow, but by helping them find their own paths. You have a gift for this, Elias. Use it well. Elias woke from the dream with tears on his cheeks, though he couldn't say exactly why. They weren't sad tears or happy tears, but something more complex. The tears that come when you touch something profound and true, when you feel the weight and wonder of existence itself. He lay in his bed watching the pre-dawn light begin to brighten his window and thought about what Isabeau had said. Helping others achieve their own transformations. Yes, that felt right. That felt like the next stage of the work. But how to do it? That was the question. Each person was unique, with their own obstacles, their own gifts, their own timing. There couldn't be a single method that worked for everyone. He would need to develop different approaches, different techniques tailored to individual needs. Over the months and years that followed, this became Elias's primary focus. He worked with Clara, helping her develop her own understanding and approach to the alchemical arts. He worked with Thomas, teaching him to see the energetic patterns underlying physical illness. He worked with a farmer who came seeking help with his failing crops and ended up discovering a deep connection with the earth and its rhythms. He worked with a young mother struggling with depression, helping her recognize the patterns of thought that kept her trapped and showing her how to shift into new ways of being. Each student taught him something new about the art of transformation. Each one showed him different aspects of human potential, different ways that consciousness could unfold and flower. Clara, in particular, progressed quickly. She had a natural gift for the work, a combination of intellectual brilliance and intuitive understanding that reminded Elias of himself at a younger age. Within 3 years, she had advanced to the point where she was ready to attempt her own version of the great work. Unlike Elias, she didn't follow Isabeau's formula exactly. Instead, she created her own approach, combining alchemical techniques with meditation practices and work with dreams. Her transformation when it came was gentler than Elias's had been, unfolding over several weeks rather than in a single dramatic night. But the result was no less profound. Clara emerged from her process with a deep, quiet wisdom that amazed everyone who knew her. She began to see patterns in nature that others missed, to understand the subtle language that all living things speak. Plants seemed to respond to her presence, growing more vibrantly when she tended them. Animals approached her without fear, and people found that just being near her brought a sense of calm and clarity. "I didn't go to the garden between," she told Elias one day. "Or if I did, it looked different from what you described. For me, it was more like sinking into the earth, into the deep knowing that exists in rocks and soil and roots. I met the consciousness of the planet itself, I think, or a part of it anyway." Elias nodded, unsurprised. The transformation takes each person to what they most need to discover. For me, it was the spaces between things, the threshold realms. For you, it was the grounded wisdom of Earth. Both are valid, both are real. "Do you think," Clara asked, "that there are as many gardens between as there are people seeking them?" "Perhaps," Elias said, Or perhaps there's one garden with infinite paths through it. Either way, the important thing is the transformation itself, not the specific details of the journey. The years passed. Elias grew older, his beard turning white, his movements becoming slower and more careful, but his mind remained sharp, and his perception of the subtle realms only deepened with time. He had achieved what he sought and more, and now he lived in a state of quiet contentment, continuing his work, teaching those who came to learn, exploring ever deeper into the mysteries of consciousness. One winter evening, when Elias was in his 70s and Clara was now a mature woman of 45, they sat together in the tower room as snow fell softly outside the window. The fire in the hearth crackled pleasantly, and the room smelled of mulled wine and cinnamon. "Do you ever think about death?" asked Clara suddenly. "About what happens to consciousness when the body fails?" Elias smiled. "I think about it often," he admitted. "How could I not at my age? But I'm not afraid of it. The transformation taught me that consciousness is not limited to the body. This physical form is like a vessel that holds awareness for a time, but the awareness itself is not bound by the vessel." "So you think you'll continue after death?" asked Clara. "I think some aspect of me will continue, yes. Perhaps in the garden between, perhaps in some other realm, perhaps returning to a larger consciousness from which we all emerge. I don't know the details, and I'm comfortable with that uncertainty." He sipped his wine and looked into the fire. "What I do know is that this life has been extraordinarily rich and meaningful. I've learned so much, experienced so much, contributed what I could to the great work. When my time comes, I'll be ready." "Not too soon, I hope," Clara said with a smile, though her eyes were serious. "There's still much I want to learn from you. There's still much I want to teach. But remember, Clara, you're not your only teacher. You have access to the same sources of wisdom I do. The garden between, the consciousness of earth, the wisdom of your own deep mind. Trust yourself. Trust the process." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the fire, listening to the wind outside. The tower room felt like a sanctuary, a place outside of time, where profound truths could be contemplated in peace. Actually, there was one more thing Elias wanted to share with Clara, something he had been waiting for the right moment to mention. "I've been working on something," he said, "a new project, or perhaps a final project. I want to write a comprehensive guide to the great work, drawing on everything I've learned and experienced. Not a formula to follow, but a map of the territory, showing different routes different seekers might take." Clara's eyes lit up. That would be invaluable. So many people are looking for guidance, and there are so few genuine teachers. "I'll need your help," Elias said. "Your perspective, your experiences. This shouldn't be just my understanding, but a collaborative work that includes multiple viewpoints." "Of course," Clara agreed immediately. "When do we start?" "Tomorrow," Elias said. "But for tonight, let's just be here, in this moment, appreciating the simple joy of friendship and shared purpose." And so they did. Two alchemists sitting together in a tower room as snow fell outside, comfortable in silence, grateful for the paths they had walked and the transformations they had achieved. The book they eventually wrote together became known simply as The Alchemist's Dream, and it circulated quietly among serious seekers for generations. It didn't offer easy answers or step-by-step instructions. Instead, it described the territory of transformation in rich detail, sharing stories and insights, asking questions more than providing answers, encouraging each reader to find their own path. In the introduction, Elias wrote, The great work is not something you do, but something you become. It is not achieved through effort alone, but through a combination of effort and surrender, of seeking and allowing yourself to be found. The path of transformation is paradoxical and mysterious, and that is exactly as it should be. For if consciousness is infinite, then the journey of expanding consciousness must also be infinite. There is always more to discover, always deeper to go, always new dimensions of understanding to explore. Clara added her own chapter about working with earth consciousness, about grounding spiritual experiences in physical reality, about finding the sacred in the ordinary. Her writing was more poetic than Elias's, filled with imagery of roots and soil and the slow, patient wisdom of growing things. Together, their work created something greater than either could have achieved alone, a genuine guide to transformation that honored both the heights of spiritual experience and the depths of earthly embodiment. Elias completed the book in his 79th year. That spring, as new life burst forth all around the tower, he felt a subtle shift in his energy. He wasn't ill exactly, but he could sense that his time in physical form was drawing to a close. The vessel that had carried his consciousness for nearly 80 decades was beginning to wear out, and he accepted this with the same equanimity he had brought to every other aspect of the great work. His final weeks putting his affairs in order, making sure that Clara had everything she needed to continue the work, saying goodbye to the students and friends who had enriched his life. His passing, when it came, was gentle. He simply went to sleep one night and didn't wake up. But those who had achieved even a small degree of transformation reported feeling his presence in the days and weeks after his death. Some encountered him in dreams, where he continued to offer guidance and encouragement. Others felt him as a subtle presence during their meditations, a sense of supportive energy helping them navigate difficult passages in their own transformations. Clara, sitting in meditation in the tower room a week after his death, clearly perceived Elias in the garden between. He looked younger, more vibrant, free from the limitations of his aged body. He smiled at her with infinite warmth. "Thank you," he said, "for being my student and my teacher, my friend and my collaborator. The work continues, Clara. Always and forever, the work continues." "Will you stay in the garden between?" Clara asked, "like Isabeau?" "For a time," Elias replied. "There's much to learn here, much to experience, but the boundaries are not as fixed as they seem. I can work both here and there, can influence both realms. The transformation is complete, but the journey is not over. It never is." And then his presence faded, though Clara continued to feel his influence, like a gentle hand on her shoulder, guiding her forward into her own future. The tower remained active as a center of learning and transformation. Clara took on students of her own, including a brilliant young man named Marcus, who reminded her of Elias in his younger days. She taught them the alchemical arts, shared the wisdom of earth consciousness, and guided them toward their own transformations. Years became decades. The village changed, grew larger, became more connected to the wider world, but the tower remained a constant, a place where seekers could come to learn the ancient arts of transformation, to touch the mysteries that lay beneath the surface of ordinary life. And sometimes, on quiet nights when the moon was full and the air was charged with possibility, students in the tower would catch a glimpse of two figures standing together in the shadows, an old man with a white beard and a woman with dark hair, both glowing softly with an inner light. Elias and Isabeau, continuing their work from the garden between, watching over those who followed the path they had helped illuminate. The great work, as Elias had written, never ends. Each generation takes it forward, adds their own understanding, discovers new dimensions of possibility. Some seek transformation through alchemy, others through meditation, still others through art or science or service. The methods vary, but the essential truth remains the same. Consciousness is infinite in its potential, and every human being carries within them the possibility of profound transformation. This is the secret that Elias discovered on that autumn night so many years ago when he drank the glowing elixir in his tower room. Not that transformation is impossible, but that it is inevitable for those who seek it with sincerity and dedication. Not that we must escape our humanity to touch the divine, but that our humanity itself is the doorway through which we pass into expanded understanding. The alchemist's dream was never really about turning lead into gold or discovering the elixir of physical immortality. It was about transforming consciousness itself, about waking up to the profound mystery and miracle of existence, about recognizing that we are not separate from the universe, but expressions of it, waves on an infinite ocean of awareness. And this dream, once awakened to, never truly fades. It calls to each generation, inviting them to undertake their own journey of transformation, to add their own discoveries to the collective understanding, to pass the torch of wisdom forward to those who come after. In a small cottage at the edge of the village, Clara now teaches a new generation of students. The copper alembic that once belonged to Elias sits on her workbench, still serviceable, still helping to distill essences and prepare medicines. Isabeau's journal, carefully preserved, rests on a shelf beside Elias's own writings and Clara's additions to the literature of transformation. On quiet evenings, Clara sometimes stands at her window looking up at the old tower on the hill. It stands empty now, its windows dark, but it remains a powerful symbol of what is possible when someone dedicates their life to the pursuit of truth and transformation. And she smiles, knowing that the work continues, that the ancient secrets are being passed forward, that somewhere in the world, right now, someone else is beginning their own journey toward the great work. The dream of the alchemist lives on, whispering its secrets to those who have ears to hear, calling forth transformation in every age, in every place, in every heart that yearns for something more than ordinary existence. This is the true elixir of immortality, not a potion that extends physical life forever, but a truth that transcends time, that consciousness can expand, that transformation is possible, that we are far more than we imagine ourselves to be. And so the story continues, as it always has and always will, as long as there are seekers willing to undertake the journey, as long as there are teachers willing to share what they have learned, as long as the ancient dream of transformation continues to whisper its invitation into receptive hearts.